What if the only food a billionaire could eat was made by a little girl on a street corner? When a broken CEO with a haunted past crosses paths with a 7-year-old roadside chef, her humble noodles do more than stir his appetite. They stir something long buried within him. He thought it was just a meal. He didn't know it was the beginning of everything. Sit back, relax, and watch how a simple plate of noodles changed one man's world forever. The sun had barely risen over the busy streets of Ikea, but a long line had already formed in front of a small wooden stall beside a drainage gutter. It had no signboard, no paint, and no generator, but it had something nobody else in the city had: Sonia's noodles. Sonia was just 7 years old, but she cooked like someone who had been through life's fire and learned to stir strength into every pot. She stood on a small plastic stool, her tiny hands expertly turning noodles in a large black pan over a smoky coal stove. The smell pulled people from across the area, sweet, savory, and something else. Something comforting. Beside her, her mother Regina sat peeling boiled eggs and handing out food. She watched her daughter with quiet pride. Every morning a long queue would form: men in suits, market women with baskets, students with worn backpacks. They all waited, sometimes for hours, just to taste Sonia's noodles. Her rule was simple: only 20 plates a day, not 21, not even if you offered the world. "Please, small girl," a sweaty man at the front of the line shouted. "I'll pay 10,000. Let me buy one extra plate." Sonia didn't look up. "Sorry, uncle, only 20. You came late." Another woman in high heels tried to squeeze ahead. "This is nonsense. I'm not queuing behind all these people. How much do you want? Name your price." Sonia shook her head politely. "Auntie, even if you give me your car, it's still 20 plates." People in line laughed and clapped. Regina added softly, "Please, everyone, let's respect the queue. If you don't get today, come early tomorrow." The customers didn't just come for the noodles. They came for the peace, the kindness. The little girl who cooked like her heart lived in the food. And when you tasted it, it felt like warmth from home. It tasted like hope. By mid-morning, the noodles were gone. 20 plates, just like always. Sonia wiped her hands, helped her mother pack the table, and smiled as the crowd slowly faded. She didn't know today would change everything. Across the road, a sleek black SUV had been parked for a while. Inside sat a man watching silently through the half-lowered window. His name was William Norsu. He was in his mid-30s, tall and well-groomed, with calm, distant eyes that rarely showed emotion. As the CEO of Willes Technologies, one of Nigeria's biggest tech companies, William was known across the country: wealthy, powerful, always in control. But behind the polished suits and news headlines, William carried something private. He hadn't eaten a full meal in 3 years. After the sudden loss of his parents, his body began rejecting food. Doctors diagnosed trauma-induced anorexia. Therapists tried. Nutritionists begged. Even his personal chef gave up. Food simply had no taste anymore. No smell could stir hunger. Until now. The scent that drifted from that small wooden stall across the road wasn't just food. It was memory. Something about it felt like home, like safety. Without a word, William opened the door and stepped out. "Sir?" his driver asked, surprised. William didn't reply. He crossed the road quietly and stood at the back of the crowd, blending into the last few customers still lingering to compliment the little girl. People turned. Isn't that William Nwosu?" He ignored the whispers. Sonia was cleaning up when she looked up and saw him. "Sorry, sir," she said. "Noodles is finished." William paused, unsure why that made him feel strangely disappointed. He hesitated, then said, "Not even 1 spoon left?" Sonia looked him over for a second, then smiled. "I saved 1 plate. For someone special. I think it's you." Regina, who was already walking away, looked up, surprised. She quickly hurried out of sight. Sonia handed him a small plate. "Last one, 1 egg." William sat quietly on the wooden bench near the stall. He took a bite, then another, then another. The bench creaked beneath him as he leaned forward and kept eating. He didn't speak. His eyes didn't leave the plate. His hand didn't stop moving. Regina watched in silence from a distance. Even she could see the shock in his face, like something inside him had woken up. Sonia giggled softly. "Daddy, you really like it." William paused. He slowly raised his head. "What did you call me?" "Daddy," she said again, beaming. "You look like one." William blinked. His fork hovered in the air. Something inside him stirred, something he couldn't explain. Regina's hand trembled slightly, but she said nothing. It seemed she was trying to avoid being seen by the man. William chuckled awkwardly. "That's a funny thing to say." "I'm serious," Sonia said. "You feel like my daddy." William smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He looked at her face again, closer this time. And for a split second he saw something familiar. He didn't know why, but he couldn't look away. He handed the empty plate back to Sonia. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You're welcome, Daddy," she said with a giggle, wiping her hands on a small towel. He gave a small smile, then turned and walked back to his SUV. As he sat in the back seat, the taste still lingered on his tongue. He had eaten. For the first time in years, he had finished a full plate. But what he couldn't shake off was the little girl's face. The way she called him Daddy. The way she looked at him was like she knew something he didn't. That night, William lay in his penthouse in Victoria Island, the city lights glowing beneath him. He didn't touch the food his chef brought in. He kept thinking about her. About Sonia. And so the next day, he came back. The noodles were already almost gone when he arrived. Sonia saw him and waved. "You came back." "I did," he said, smiling. "Your plate is waiting." He sat, ate again, slowly this time. When he was done, he wiped his mouth and looked around. "Where's your mum?" Sonia glanced toward the house behind the stall. "She stepped out," she said. William nodded politely. "Ah, okay." But what he didn't know was, Regina hadn't stepped out at all. She was inside, just behind the curtain, watching him through a crack in the window. Her heart had nearly stopped the day before when she saw his face again. It was him. William, the man she once loved. The man who left without knowing what he left behind. She hadn't planned for this moment. And now that it had come, she didn't know what to do. She wasn't ready to face him. Not yet. So she stayed hidden. And he kept coming. Every day for a week, William came back, sometimes early, sometimes late, but Regina never came out. Sonia told him the same thing each time. She stepped out. She went to get Pepper. She's resting. And every day William ate his noodles quietly, then sat with Sonia and chatted like an old friend. Over time, Sonia grew even more attached to him. She wouldn't eat unless he was there. Wouldn't cook without setting a plate aside for him. "Why do you like me so much?" he asked one evening, handing her a drink. Sonia shrugged and smiled. "I don't know, you feel nice. Like you care. Like you're mine." William raised his brow. "Like I'm yours?" She nodded. "Like you're supposed to be in my life." He laughed softly. "That's a big feeling for a small girl." "I'm not small," she said, standing tall on her toes. "I'm 7. "Ah, forgive me, small madam." They both laughed. That evening, after the customers left and she was cleaning up, William stayed to help her wipe the bench. "Your mum still hasn't come out," he said gently. "She's shy," Sonia said quickly. William gave a small smile. "And your dad? Where's he?" Sonia paused. Her smile dropped just a little. "I don't know him," she said simply. "Mummy said he traveled a long time ago." William looked at her quietly. "I see." As they wiped the last tray, he noticed something on her wrist. A bracelet, faded gold, slightly cracked, but very familiar. He froze. He had the exact same bracelet, passed down to him by his grandmother. It was part of a pair. The other half had been given to someone special years ago. Someone he never found again. "Sonia," he said slowly, kneeling beside her. "Where did you get this bracelet?" She looked down at her wrist. This. It's always been mine. Mummy says it's lucky. He stared at it, his thoughts spinning. There was no way. That night, he kept thinking about her. But what if? Something about her smile, her laughter, her presence. It felt like home. And now the bracelet. His heart began to beat faster. There was definitely something about her. While William was trying to grasp the meaning of it all, someone across town sat cross-legged on the floor of their one-room apartment, quietly brushing her doll's hair. Regina moved slowly around the room, folding washed clothes and trying not to meet her daughter's eyes. Her hands were steady, but her mind wasn't. Sonia looked up. "Mummy." "Yes, baby? Why are you running away from that man?" Regina paused, cloth still in her hand. "Running? Who's running?" "You, Mummy," Sonia said softly. "You always go inside when he comes." Regina smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm not running. I've just been tired. I needed rest." "But I saw you," Sonia said. "The first day he came, you saw him from far and went back inside before he reached us." Regina stayed quiet. "You've been hiding since then." Regina opened her mouth, but no words came out. Sonia stood and walked up to her mother. "Mummy, that man is my daddy." Regina's hands trembled. She turned her face away and forced a laugh. "Where are you getting all these things from, Ain? Just because someone eats your noodles doesn't make him your father." Sonia frowned. "I just know." Regina turned back to folding the clothes. "It's late. Go and get your bath water." Sonia watched her for a moment longer, then walked away quietly. But in that silence, behind Regina's eyes, was a storm. She leaned against the wall, holding a piece of cloth tightly to her chest, and blinked away tears. Yes, she knew exactly who Sonia meant. Meanwhile, back in his high-rise apartment, William stood alone by his window, the city glowing beneath him. But his mind wasn't in the city. It was at that roadside stall, with the little girl who called him Daddy, and her bracelet. He opened the drawer in his bedroom and pulled out a small wooden box. Inside lay his bracelet, the matching piece, the exact same design, worn, but still shining. It had been in his family for generations. He used to wear it every day until the year everything changed. 8 years ago. His hands shook as he picked it up. It couldn't be a coincidence. That little girl, Sonia. Her smile, her voice, that familiar feeling. Could she really be? His heart beat faster. Flashbacks flooded his mind. The beach in Tarqua Bay, the music from the small radio, Regina laughing in the wind, sitting beside him, barefoot in the sand. He had fallen for her so deeply, so easily. They had talked about building a future together. But then the calls stopped. She left without a word. No note, no reason. She vanished. At some point he convinced himself she never truly cared. Now, Sonia, the bracelet, that smile. Could Regina have been pregnant when she left? He wasn't sure, but he was sure of one thing now. He needed to talk to Sonia's mother. And this time, he wasn't leaving without answers. The next morning, the smell of onions and pepper floated in the air, drawing early customers to the small wooden stall. Sonia was already stirring her pot of noodles with her usual focus, her little hands moving like clockwork. Regina sat beside her, peeling eggs, her eyes tired but calm. They had barely served 5 plates when a dark blue car pulled up nearby. A tall man in a starched white chef's jacket stepped out. His name was Chef Kofi, owner of a nearby restaurant that had been losing customers ever since Sonia's stall became popular. He walked toward them with 2 men following behind. His voice was loud, meant for everyone around to hear. "So this is the so-called magic stall," he said, looking around with a smirk. "This is what people are calling the best noodles in the city?" Regina stood slowly. "Good morning, sir. Can we help you?" "Help me?" Kofi scoffed. "I'm here to help you. I'm reporting this illegal operation. A child cooking unsupervised, no license, no hygiene approval. It's a public health risk." Sonia looked up, confused. "But I wash my hands every time." "Oh, please," Kofi cut in sharply. "What does a little girl like you know about kitchen safety?" The crowd began to murmur. A few stepped back, unsure what was going on. Regina's jaw tightened. She is not alone. I'm always here with her. She was born with this gift and I guide her. Kofi laughed cruelly. Born with a gift? What gift can a poor single mother teach her daughter? You people don't belong in the food business. This is street nonsense. Sonia's eyes welled up. She looked at her mum, scared. Regina stepped forward, standing tall despite the fear in her chest. We do this with care. We've never hurt anyone. The people who eat here know we are clean. She has talent. She deserves to share it. Kofi raised his hand and waved to his men. Shut this place down. Regina's heart dropped. Sonia's hands stopped stirring. It felt like everything they had built was about to be crushed. Just then, a calm but firm voice rang out behind the crowd. Excuse me, it said. Is there a problem here? Everyone turned. William Nwosu walked slowly toward the stall, dressed, but even in his casual clothes, his presence shifted the air. Kofi blinked. Wait, you're… Yes, William said, and I'm a regular customer here. He turned to the small crowd. I eat here almost every day. I've never been sick. I've never seen any dirt or carelessness. He faced Kofi. And unless you're the health inspector, you have no right to threaten them. The murmurs grew louder. Kofi stepped back slightly, unsure. William continued. If you have a personal problem with their success, maybe focus on improving your own kitchen instead of bullying a child and her mother. Kofi swallowed hard. He looked around, saw the people nodding in support of Sonia and Regina, and hissed under his breath. This isn't over, he muttered, then stormed back to his car. The vehicle drove off, kicking dust behind it. Regina let out a shaky breath. William turned to her. Are you okay? Regina nodded slowly. Yes. Thank you. For a moment, they just looked at each other. And in that silence, something passed between them. There was no more hiding. No more pretending she didn't know him. No more avoiding the truth. Because in that moment, after 8 long years, Regina knew the inevitable had come. The dust from Chef Kofi's car had barely settled when everything else around the stall fell quiet again. Customers slowly returned to their plates, and the air regained its usual warmth, but not for Regina and William. They stood there staring at each other. Years hung heavy in that silence. Years of pain, misunderstanding, distance, and something unspoken that still lingered between them. Regina's eyes were soft but guarded. William's eyes were filled with questions he didn't know how to ask. Then a small hand tugged gently on William's shirt. Sonia? She looked up at him with a big, sincere smile. Daddy? She said, as if it had always been true. William blinked, trying to find his voice. Yes, he whispered. I want to cook just for you forever, she said shyly. Regina's breath caught in her throat. William looked down at Sonia, her eyes wide with hope, her face lit up like sunshine, and something cracked inside him. His heart wasn't just stirred. It was breaking open. He knelt down to her level. That means a lot to me, he said, voice thick. Thank you. Sonia hugged him quickly around the neck, then dashed off to pack up the last plates. Regina turned to walk away, but William followed. Regina, he said, voice low but firm, please, talk to me. She stopped. I need to know, he said gently. Is Sonia my daughter? Regina faced him, the mask of calm slowly fading from her face. No, she said quickly. She's not. William stared at her, disbelief in his eyes. You left, she continued, her voice suddenly stronger. You abandoned me, William. When things got hard, you weren't there. You didn't even try to reach me. That's not true. You want to know who Sonia's father is? She cut in. It's not you. He looked stunned. I met someone else. After we separated, I fell in love again. He wanted to marry me, but her voice dropped. He died before Sonia was born. William took a step back, studying her face. There was pain there, yes, but also something else, something that felt off. Regina, he said slowly. If that's true, then why does Sonia have my family's bracelet? Regina looked away, suddenly tense. It's just a bracelet. You gave it to me, remember? I chose to give it to my daughter. It's not just the bracelet. It's her. She feels too familiar, like she is a part of me. She didn't reply. William sighed, eyes filled with quiet hurt. I don't want to argue, he said at last. And I'm not here to force anything. If you say she isn't mine, I'll respect that. He paused. But I know what I felt when I saw her. And I know I've never felt anything like that before. He turned to leave, then stopped and looked back. Whatever happened between us, I just want to understand. That's all. And with that, he walked away, leaving Regina standing alone in the quiet, her hands clenched at her sides and her heart pounding with truths too heavy to carry. It had been a few quiet days since the confrontation. William kept coming back to the stall, not to ask questions, not to press Regina, just to eat. Every time, Sonia greeted him with joy, already holding his plate. She saved his portion before serving anyone else. You're my most loyal customer, she'd say proudly, and William would smile like it was the only compliment that mattered. Regina didn't say much to him, but she didn't hide anymore either. She watched from her bench, quiet, thoughtful, guarded. One afternoon, as William finished the last bite of his noodles, he looked at Regina. I still can't believe this is the only food I can finish. She raised a brow. You? The same man who once finished 3 plates of pounded yam with goat meat? He smiled. Not anymore. I've tried everything else, even from top chefs. Nothing works, only Sonia's food. Regina blinked slowly. Then your life must be hard. He shrugged. It was, until this stall. She didn't respond. Her eyes drifted to Sonia, who was happily chatting with an old woman as she served her with care. Regina turned back to William. Don't read meaning into it, she said softly. Please. I'm not, he said gently. I just come to eat. Regina gave a small nod, but inside her chest emotions stirred. She remembered how easily she used to fall for his kindness, and now with him sitting there again every day, she wasn't sure she could survive it a second time. 2 days later, as the morning heat settled over the street, a familiar figure returned, Chef Kofi. He stepped out of his SUV again, but this time, no entourage, no shouting. Easy, he said, raising his hands when the crowd tensed. I didn't come to fight. Regina stood slowly, alert. Sonia paused mid-stir. I came with a challenge, Kofi said, looking straight at Sonia. You're good, I'll admit that, but let's see just how good. He pulled out a flyer and dropped it on the table. In bold letters it read, The Culinary King Clash, Season 5. The crowd gasped. It was the country's most famous cooking competition, a televised national contest where top chefs battled for the crown judged by the best in the industry. Sonia looked at it with wide eyes. Is that real? Kofi smirked. Very. You enter if you're serious. Not everyone can handle it, especially not a child. He looked at the crowd. But if you're as good as they say, prove it. He turned and walked away. Regina picked up the flyer and studied it with cautious eyes. I don't know, she murmured. Later that evening, after the crowd had gone and the sun had dipped behind the rooftops, Sonia handed William the flyer. Uncle William, she said, do you think I should try it? He read it carefully. Culinary King Clash? That's a big deal. I want to try, she said. He looked at her seriously. Are you sure? Sonia nodded. I may be small, but my food has something special. William smiled. You're braver than most adults I know? He looked at Regina, who stood in the doorway of their small home. I'll sponsor her, he said gently. Everything she needs. Equipment, transport, registration. Regina opened her mouth to speak, then closed it. She wanted to say no, to keep things simple, to protect her daughter and maybe even herself. But the look on Sonia's face, the light in her eyes, it reminded her of dreams she had buried long ago. And so she simply nodded. But she knew something had shifted. Her daughter was no longer just a street cook. She was stepping into a bigger world. News of Sonia's entry into the Culinary King Clash spread like wildfire. Some people clapped, others mocked. A child in a professional kitchen? She should be playing cook and not cooking real food. Now she will be on TV. She's good, yes, but this is a serious competition. This is just for drama. They want to use her to boost views. William saw the comments online and shook his head. People didn't understand, but the organizers did. In a press release the next day, the host of the competition stood in front of cameras and said, "Culinary King Clash has no age limit. We believe talent is not tied to age. If a 7-year-old can cook better than a grown chef, so be it. Let the food speak." That silenced many critics, but not all. That night, in their tiny apartment, Regina sat with Sonia on a mat by the corner. A soft bulb flickered above them, casting long shadows on the cracked wall. "Are you scared?" Regina asked. Sonia shook her head. "Only a little." Regina smiled. "That's normal." She reached for an old photo album tucked away behind their cooking pans. Blowing off dust, she opened it carefully and pulled out a faded black-and-white photo. "This was your grandfather," she said. Sonia leaned closer. "He looked serious." Regina laughed. He was very serious, especially when he cooked. He was the head chef in a royal palace. Kings and governors ate from his hands. "Really?" Sonia's eyes widened. "Yes. People came from all over to taste his food. He believed food wasn't just for filling the stomach. It was for healing, for comfort, for making people feel something." Sonia went quiet, thinking. "You got your gift from him," Regina continued softly. "It's in your blood." Sonia looked at her hands. "Then I have to do it well. I want to make him proud." Regina pulled her close and kissed her forehead. "You already have." From the next morning, training began. Sonia didn't sleep in. She didn't complain. She woke up early, tied her small apron and practiced. She cooked over and over again. Sometimes it was her signature noodles. Other times, it was new dishes, soups, fried plantain, puff-puff, jollof, yam porridge. She wanted to try everything. Regina guided her through old recipes passed down from her father. She taught her how to balance seasoning, how to boil meat with patience, how to taste with the tip of the tongue, how to cook with heart, not just hands. William bought her better utensils, a new stove, clean aprons, measuring spoons, and even a mini blender. But he stayed in the background, never pushing, just supporting. And at night, when Sonia slept, Regina sometimes sat alone with her thoughts. She wasn't afraid for Sonia's talent. She was afraid of what life could take from them again. The competition had finally begun. The Culinary King Clash arena buzzed with lights, cameras, and reporters. Stainless steel countertops gleamed under spotlights. Judges sat behind long tables, arms crossed, eyes sharp. Contestants in crisp white aprons moved quickly around the kitchen stations. And in the middle of it all stood Sonia, small and focused in her tiny apron, her braids tied back neatly. Her station looked different, colorful, warm, and simple. She had placed a folded drawing of her and her mum in the corner for courage. At the far end, Chef Coffee stood at his station, arms crossed, watching her like a hawk. He hadn't forgotten the embarrassment at the stall, and today, he had a plan. As the competition began, a loud bell rang. "Contestants," the host announced. "You have 1 hour to create a dish from your roots, something from your family, your story, your heart." The timer started ticking. Sonia opened her bag. She gasped. Her tomatoes were rotten. Her seasoning cubes were missing. Her meat had gone sour. She froze. She turned around quickly and saw Chef Kofi glance her way with a smirk. Regina, watching from the audience, stood up, panic rising in her throat. William clenched his fists. The judges noticed the delay. Whispers started. But Sonia closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and turned to the back shelf of the kitchen where leftover ingredients were kept. She grabbed a few basic items: leftover boiled rice, some onions, flour, and a small bowl of dry cassava flakes. Gari. She didn't cry. She went to work. With her small hands moving fast, she created something unexpected. Mini meat pies shaped like tiny rabbits, with soft fillings made from seasoned rice and onions. Beside it, She served a warm bowl of pap with a sprinkle of sugar and soaked gari on the side. Simple, unimpressive to the eye, but powerful in story. When the judges reached her station, one of them raised a brow. "What is this?" Sonia stood up straight and smiled. "I call it hope on a plate." The judges blinked. "It may not look like much," she said, "but this is what I ate with my mummy when we had nothing." She took a breath. "Sometimes we begged. Sometimes we shared one spoon. But mummy always made it taste special." She said, "Food is not just for the stomach, it's for the heart. So I made this for children like me, and single mothers like my mum, who don't always have meat or spice or money. But we have love, and hunger doesn't wait for fancy." The room fell silent. Even Chef Kofi stopped smirking. Sonia continued, her voice clear. "This is not food for the rich. This is food for the soul. And I want the world to know that even poor families deserve something beautiful on their plate." Tears filled the eyes of one of the female judges. Another nodded slowly, deeply moved. After a moment, all three judges stood up and clapped. The crowd joined in, rising to their feet in applause. Regina pressed her hand to her mouth, shaking with emotion. William blinked fast, swallowing the lump in his throat. Later that afternoon, the host stepped forward, smiling. And qualifying for the final round of Culinary King Clash, the highest judge score of the day, he raised the mic. "Sonia Regina Chukwuemeka." The hall erupted with cheers. Sonia's eyes widened. She turned to the crowd looking for her mother. Regina was already walking toward the front, tears running down her face, arms open wide. And as they embraced in the spotlight, everyone watching knew this was no ordinary competition. This was history in the making. The days leading up to the final round of the Culinary King Clash were filled with excitement and nerves. Sonia and Regina practiced day and night. Regina guided her daughter with patience, helping her tweak recipes, balance flavors, and think creatively. Sonia took every lesson seriously. She wanted not just to win, but to honor her mother, her grandfather, and every poor child who had ever been told they couldn't do something big. But somewhere else in the city, William Nwosu sat alone in his office, turning over something far heavier than recipes. The bracelet still lay on his table. So did the photo of Sonia he had secretly printed from a news blog. He had tried to shake the feeling, tried to believe Regina's words, "She's not yours." But his heart said otherwise. Every time Sonia called him daddy, something inside him responded, not with confusion, but with knowing. So he did what he had avoided for weeks. He called his doctor. He arranged for a secret paternity test. He submitted the result of a gentle cheek swab he had collected from Sonia's used napkin at the stall. And now, he sat with the envelope in his hands. His fingers trembled as he opened it. His eyes scanned the result. 99.98% probability of biological relationship. William Nwosu is the father of Sonia Chukwuemeka. He didn't cry, but he closed his eyes, and for the first time in years he felt something break open inside him. Sonia was his daughter. His. And he had missed the first 7 years of her life. Not because Regina ran, but because he gave up too easily. He hadn't searched long enough, hadn't fought harder. Now, he had a second chance. But would Regina forgive him? Would she even believe him? Or had she hidden it, because she thought he didn't deserve to know? He stared out the window, his heart heavy. He wanted to go to them immediately, but he didn't want to cause chaos, not with the final round so close. He would wait, just a little longer. But while William battled his truth in silence, Regina and Sonia faced a storm of their own. One afternoon during practice, Regina received a call from a friend in the media. "You need to be careful," the voice warned. "There's a rumor going around that you and Sonia made people sick during the prelim round." "What?" Regina said, shocked. "Some competitors are spreading it. They say a child shouldn't be allowed to compete, that you're feeding judges with unclean food just to win sympathy. The story might go public." Regina felt the ground shift beneath her. At that same moment, Sonia came running in from the stall, her small face pale. "Mummy," she said, "a man just called me a disgrace for joining the show." He said children don't belong in adult kitchens. Regina held her daughter tightly. Don't listen to them, she said, trying to keep her voice calm. We know the truth. But why are they so angry? Sonia whispered. Regina looked away. Because some people only want the world to stay the same, and they get scared when something different shines. Later that evening, the show's organizers called for a press conference. The press room buzzed with tension. Reporters, judges, sponsors, and audience members filled the seats. Microphones stood in a row on a long table. The organizers wanted to address the growing rumors and accusations surrounding Sonia and Regina. Cameras flashed. Journalists whispered. At the center of it all, Chef Kofi sat stiffly, his arms crossed too tightly. A fake smile rested on his lips, but sweat glistened on his forehead. Just as the host began speaking, a figure walked onto the stage, William Norsu. He took the mic, surprising everyone, and calmly said, "Before we continue, I have something important to show." He turned toward the projector behind him. The lights dimmed, the screen lit up. A CCTV footage played. In the video, a man in a hoodie crept into the contestants' pantry the night before the preliminaries. He moved swiftly, switching out ingredients, slipping rotten items into Sonia's bag before quietly walking away. Gasps filled the room. William turned back to the crowd. This footage was recovered through my connections. As you can see, there was sabotage, intentional, targeted, and cruel. Reporters shouted questions. Who is he? Who sent him? William raised a hand. We are still identifying the man. He has not been found yet, but I give you my word he will be, and he will be arrested. All eyes turned to Chef Kofi, whose fake smile had vanished. He shifted in his seat, clearly uneasy. One of the people who sat close to Chef Kofi leaned in and whispered, "You know who that is, don't you?" But Kofi didn't answer. After the chaos settled, William stepped away from the table and walked straight toward Regina, who had been standing at the back of the hall, holding Sonia's hand. People moved out of his way as he approached. He stopped right in front of her and took a deep breath. Then he pulled something from his pocket, a white envelope. He handed it to her. Regina hesitated, then slowly opened it. Her eyes scanned the page. She froze. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. William's voice was soft. "She's mine." Regina looked up, tears already filling her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "She is." He stepped closer. "Why didn't you tell me?" Regina swallowed hard. Her voice shook. "Because I suffered. After you left, I had nothing. I was alone. I didn't even know I was pregnant at first, but when I did, it didn't matter. Not to you." William's face fell. "I didn't know." "You didn't fight for me, William," she said, tears rolling freely now. "Your mother didn't want me, and you—" She choked back a sob. "You gave up, just like that." "I didn't give up," he whispered. She shook her head. "I saw a picture of you, with another woman. She was kissing you. I told myself you moved on, that you forgot me." William looked shocked. "Nothing happened with her. That night it was my birthday party. She kissed me, but I pulled away. I never wanted anyone else." Regina's hands trembled. "I didn't want to beg you for recognition," she said quietly. "I didn't want you to think I was trapping you with a child." She turned slightly toward Sonia, who had stepped away to give them space. "I chose silence, not because I didn't love you, but because I had to protect myself. And her." William nodded slowly, his eyes red. "And I thought you left, because you didn't love me." They both stood in that silence. Years of pain stretched between them. Finally, Regina whispered, "So, what now?" William looked at Regina, his voice soft. "Tell me everything, please." Regina sighed and leaned slightly against the wooden railing. "There were days I couldn't even afford pure water," she said. "I begged on the street with Sonia tied to my back. We slept outside once, behind a shop, when our rent expired. Sometimes I cooked with firewood and used salt water when I couldn't afford seasoning." William closed his eyes, his throat tightened. "I watched her grow with no one but me," Regina continued. She asked why her friends had daddies, but she didn't. I lied sometimes, other times I cried alone. He took a shaky breath. I'm sorry, Regina, for everything. For not looking harder. For not being there when you needed me most. She didn't speak. He continued. I didn't just lose you. I lost myself too. Regina looked at him, surprised. He nodded slowly. The anorexia? It started after my parents died. Regina's eyes widened. We were in the car together. I was sitting behind them. One moment we were talking, the next... He stopped, struggling. I saw everything, their blood, their final moments, and I couldn't save them. He wiped his eyes. Since that night, I couldn't eat. Nothing stayed down. My body gave up. My heart gave up. I didn't have my parents, and I thought you left me. I was sad and alone. He looked away, then back at her. Until I met Sonia. His voice cracked. I didn't know she was my daughter, but the first time I tasted her food, something shifted. It was like my soul recognized her before I did. Regina's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. I'm not here to take her away, William added. I just want to be part of your lives, if you'll let me. She looked at him, silent, then softly said, I'll think about it. He nodded, grateful for even that. Later that day, in the small back room of the competition venue, Sonia sat on a plastic chair, swinging her legs and humming a song she made up herself. William knelt in front of her and gently opened a small box. Inside was a faded gold bracelet, the twin of the one she always wore. Her eyes lit up. I have this one, she said, pointing to hers. Mummy said it was special. It is, William smiled. And this one matches yours, because it was given to me by my grandmother. She said one day it would lead me to someone very important. He gently placed it in her hand. I think it led me to you. Sonia looked at the bracelet, then at him. Her eyes slowly filled with wonder. So, does this mean you're really my daddy? William nodded, barely able to speak. Sonia grinned, bursting with joy. I knew it, she said, throwing her arms around him. From the first day you came, I just knew. William laughed softly, hugging her tightly. His arms trembled. So much time lost, so many years, but she was here, and she was his. Can I tell my friends now? Sonia asked with playful excitement. That I have a daddy, a real one? William smiled through tears. Yes, baby, you can. Later that evening, a public statement was released. All accusations against Regina and Sonia were cleared. The footage, the false rumors, the poisoning claims, all exposed as lies. And in front of cameras, William Nwosu stood tall. I declare both Regina Chukwuemeka and her daughter Sonia under my full protection, he announced. Flashbulbs exploded, headlines spread, people wondered why he did that, and how he was connected to them. The press tried to ask, but William wasn't ready to reveal everything, not yet. For now, the only thing that mattered was the little girl in braids gripping his hand, and the woman standing silently beside them. He hadn't just found his daughter, he had found something deeper. A chance to make things right. The following morning, the big day arrived, finally. The final round of the culinary king clash. The grand stage sparkled with lights, the cameras rolled, and the audience filled every seat. Flags waved, children held signs, judges sat behind polished desks with serious eyes. It was no longer just a contest, it was a national event. And in the center of it all stood Sonia, dressed in a crisp white apron, her hair neatly braided, her face calm but determined. Beside her in the prep room, Regina adjusted her collar, whispering softly, No matter what happens out there today, I'm already proud of you. Sonia looked up and smiled. Thank you, Mummy. The host's voice echoed through the arena. Welcome everyone to the final round. Today's challenge is a legendary dish passed down through generations of African royalty. The screen behind him displayed elegant images of feathers and fire. The dish is called Phoenix Gathering. Gasps filled the room. It was known to be one of the hardest dishes ever created, made with 9 different types of poultry meat, each cooked separately and arranged into the form of a rising phoenix on the plate. This dish is not just food, the host continued. It is history. It is heritage. And it is today's challenge. The countdown began. Sonia worked with incredible focus. She seasoned chicken, duck, quail, guinea fowl, pigeon, turkey, and more, handling each piece with care, just as her grandfather once did in a royal palace far away. She used a small carving knife to arrange the meats into the shape of a phoenix, its wings rising from the plate, its body glowing with golden skin, its tail feathered with soft garnishes. Regina watched from the audience, holding her breath. William sat beside her, silently proud. And when the clock hit 0, Sonia placed her plate gently on the judge's table and stepped back. The crowd applauded. Even her competitors looked impressed. The judges tasted one by one. Each bite slowed their chewing. Their eyebrows lifted, their faces softened with wonder. The lead judge leaned forward. "It's perfect," he said quietly. Just as he reached for the mic to announce the winner chef, Kofi stood up. "I protest!" All heads turned. "This dish, the way she prepared it," he shouted. "It's a stolen recipe, plagiarism." Gasps echoed across the room. Sonia's eyes widened. Regina stood, fists clenched. Kofi pointed. "Phoenix Gathering belongs to royal chefs. No child from the street could know this. She copied it." The judges looked unsure. Whispers grew louder. Then Regina stepped forward. Her voice was clear. "That dish was passed to her by blood." The hall went quiet. "It was created by my father, Sonia's grandfather. He was once the head chef to a royal family. That recipe came from our home, from our hands, from our hearts." "That can't be true. I know you are lying," Kofi protested. She turned to the judges. "Sonia didn't copy anything. She cooked what she carries in her blood." Silence. Then murmurs. The audience was still buzzing, unsure what to believe. Some clapped, others whispered, and a few shook their heads. Even with Regina's powerful words, the shadow of doubt still lingered. Then one of the senior judges stood up and raised a hand. "I have a suggestion," he said, his voice steady. "Let's settle this properly. Right here. Right now." The crowd fell silent. He looked at Sonia, then at Chef Kofi. "Let both contestants prepare a new dish. One final test. No prior ingredients, no staff. Just raw talent, instinct, and heart. The best dish wins." The room gasped. "But," he turned to Sonia, "if you agree and your dish doesn't shine brighter than Chef Kofi's, you must withdraw from professional cooking. Forever." All eyes turned to Sonia. Regina's heart raced. William tensed. Sonia stepped forward, small but unshaken. "I accept." Regina's breath caught. "Sonia." But Sonia looked back at her mother and smiled. "I can do this, Mummy. I believe in what I cook." The countdown began. Each contestant was given basic ingredients and a simple stove. No help, no recipe books, just hands and soul. Chef Kofi began immediately, grating, blending, stirring with practiced ease. He smirked as he worked, confident in his skill. Sonia stood still for a moment, her eyes closed. She breathed in the spices, felt the heat of the stove, thought of all the meals she had made with her mother, all the hungry nights, all the borrowed pots, all the time she turned scraps into comfort. And then she moved. She cooked with no plan, only memory and love. She grilled onions till they caramelized. She stirred a rich sauce using pepper, crayfish, and ground nut. She fried soft dumplings filled with shredded chicken, egg yolk, and herbs. She garnished it all with leaves and tears of effort. As the clock hit 0, both dishes were placed before the judges. They tasted Chef Kofi's first, impressed. But when they tasted Sonia's dish, something changed. They leaned back in their chairs, eyes closing slowly. One of them held his chest, another placed her hand gently on the plate, and then one whispered, "It's not just food. It's memory, healing, and love on a plate." Just as the host prepared to announce the final winner, a commotion rose near the back doors. William's assistant rushed in, followed by 2 security guards and a young man in a black hoodie. The host paused. The crowd turned. "This man," the assistant declared, "is the one from the CCTV footage. He has confessed." Gasps rang out. He admitted he was paid by Chef Kofi to sabotage Sonia's ingredients during the preliminaries, and he was the one behind the entire smear campaign. People turned to Kofi. He stood frozen. Shouts erupted from the crowd. Shame. She's a child. You played dirty. Karma. Kofi dropped his eyes. He had nothing left to say. Within minutes, security escorted him away. The judges leaned into their microphones. After careful tasting and considering the spirit of this competition, we proudly declare Sonia Chukwuemeka as the winner of Culinary King Clash Season 5. The crowd exploded into cheers. Regina rushed onto the stage. William followed. Sonia turned, eyes full of joy and disbelief, as her mother and father wrapped their arms around her in a warm, tight embrace. Tears flowed freely, not just from them, but from strangers who had watched this little girl rise from the roadside to royalty in the kitchen. Then, unexpectedly, Chef Kofi stepped back on stage. He walked slowly, humbled, and stopped before Sonia. "I lost today," he said, voice low but sincere. "Not just a title, but my pride." He looked at her gently. "A child taught me what I refused to learn in all my years as a chef, that cooking is not about power or fame. It's about people." He bowed. Sonia looked up at him and smiled, quietly offering him a small nod of respect. She had won. But more than that, she had changed the world with a spoon and a brave heart. The cameras had barely stopped flashing when William turned to Regina backstage and said softly, "Come home." She blinked. "Move in with me, both of you. My home is too big and too empty without you." Regina hesitated, eyes drifting to Sonia, who was surrounded by reporters and new admirers, waving shyly, holding her trophy tightly. "You don't have to decide now," he added, "but I want our daughter to wake up in a house where she's treated like the royalty she is, and I want you to rest for once. No more back-breaking mornings at the stall. Let me take care of you, like I should have, long ago." Regina looked at him for a long moment. Then quietly, she nodded. Within a week, Regina and Sonia moved into the Nwosu mansion, a place of shining marble floors, high glass windows, and sprawling gardens. But it wasn't the luxury that mattered. It was the laughter in the hallways, the warmth in the kitchen where Sonia now taught the mansion's chefs how to make her noodles, and the peace in Regina's heart as she tucked her daughter into bed each night, knowing she no longer had to fight alone. To mark the new beginning, William organized a grand gala, the kind the city hadn't seen in years. Everywhere that mattered, people spoke of it, the return of the Nwosu legacy, the street girl turned culinary queen, the heiress who cooked her way to history. The grand ballroom glowed with gold and crystal. The city's elites, politicians, celebrities, and business giants gathered, all eager to see the girl who had captured the nation's heart. On the main stage, under soft lights, William stood beside Regina and Sonia, both dressed in flowing evening gowns, elegant, radiant, proud. He took the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, voice calm, "tonight is not about wealth, or power, or fame." He turned to Sonia, who beamed beside him. "It's about this little girl who healed a broken man without even knowing it, who turned a roadside meal into a legacy, and who, from this night forward, is officially recognized as Sonia Nwosu, my daughter, my pride, my heir." Thunderous applause shook the hall. Sonia curtsied playfully, and the crowd laughed. But William wasn't done. He turned toward Regina. Still holding the mic, still on stage with the whole city watching, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. The crowd gasped. He dropped to one knee. "Regina," he said, "you were my first love and the mother of my greatest gift. I don't want to lose you again. Please forgive me." He opened the box. "Will you marry me?" Regina's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide, her whole body trembling. Before she could speak, Sonia stepped forward, gently pulled their hands together, and said with a glowing smile, "Now we're really a family." Tears spilled freely down Regina's cheeks. She nodded. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes." The hall erupted in cheers. People stood, clapping, crying, and celebrating. William stood, placed the ring on her finger, and embraced her. Sonia wrapped her arms around both of them, laughing. "Sometimes the things we lose come back to us, not as we remember them, but as we need them."